The New York Rangers take down the Tampa Bay Lightning by a final score of 6-3 at Madison Square Garden. We're going to give the Rangers some props for getting out of this recent bad habit that they've had of starting games slow. They've really hit the ground running the last couple of games, so we're going to talk about that. Also going to break down Fight Night at Madison Square Garden, all the different fights that the Rangers and Lightning got into. Ryan Lindgren returns, Patrick Kane sits out. All this and much, much more on today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers. Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 800 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I am your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. And right at the top of the show, just want to thank you guys so much for supporting the show, helping me get to 800 episodes here. It's been a blast doing this, going through all the ups and downs, the peaks and valleys of New York Ranger hockey with you guys. But with all that said, let's go ahead and just dive into everything that happened in this game. Beginning with the Rangers for a second consecutive contest, starting the game really fast and ultimately building a 3-0 lead. And if you notice, this trend, this positive trend, has begun pretty much ever since Gerard Gallant called them out. They had a rough start against Buffalo, really just a rough performance against the Sabres. They picked it up a little bit as the game went on, but the Rangers were clearly not at their best in that game. And Gallant mentioned that, we've clinched playoffs, but that doesn't mean we're supposed to stop. This has been a joke the way that it's gone the last couple of games, and he's not wrong about that. For a while there, bad starts were becoming something of a trend, an unfortunate trend for this Ranger team. But over the last two games, just a complete 180. The Rangers have hit the ground running in each of their last two contests. They build a 3-0 lead against the Washington Capitals in their second most recent game. And then against Tampa here, the Rangers are up 3-0 in this game, just 10:21 into the game. Mind you, against a world-class goalie in Andrei Vasilevsky. Took them just 10:21 to build a 3-goal lead early in this game here. And, really it goes beyond the score. The goals are great and everything, but you watch this game, the Rangers really kind of hit the ground running, just looked like they were ready to go. They were physical. It's a very physical game in a lot of different ways, and we'll get to all that in due time here. But just great stuff by the Rangers. They're able to convert a power play early in this game. The power play has been a little shaky recently, but they go 2 for 5 on the night. And, it was the first goal that the Rangers scored came on the man advantage. So obviously a very important goal there. And then once again, they scored 3 goals in the span of just 4:08 to build themselves a nice 3-0 lead there. And I figure we might as well kind of break down the first 3 goals that were scored in this game and just kind of talk about everything that happened on these plays. To begin with, the power play goal came as the result of Steven Stamkos taking a slashing penalty. Rangers getting some early chances. Braden Schneider with a big slap shot that was stopped. And then that was actually before the power play. So the Rangers were creating a couple chances before the power play. But then the Rangers get on the power play. And with Kane out of the lineup, you go Mika, Panarin, Tarasenko, Kreider, and Fox on the top line, which is interesting because not all that long ago, I was talking about, who should be on the power play and are there any changes that should be made? And the only change that I really threw out there was I kind of like the idea of flip-flopping Tarasenko and Kane. Now, obviously, the Rangers didn't really do that because Kane didn't play in this game. But nevertheless, Tarasenko getting a chance on the top power play unit. He was over there on the right side. But on this goal, Tarasenko kind of, he's moving toward the blue line. He out of nowhere, basically, just kind of shoots the puck toward the net, and Chris Kreider is there for the deflection. He gives the Rangers a 1-0 lead. A really nice job by Mika Zibanejad earlier on this play. He prevented a clearing attempt by the Lightning, got the puck to Panarin. Mika ends up winning a battle along the boards, gets it back to Tarasenko. Tarasenko with the shot, Kreider with the tip-in, and Chris Kreider now with 263 goals in his Ranger career. He is alone in 5th place for all time with the New York Rangers. He had recently been tied with Vic Hadfield, but obviously now alone in 5th place. And then we get a goal from the kid line, and stop me if that sounds familiar. They've really been on fire recently. You got Philip Hedl moving straight up the middle of the ice. He passes to his right to Kaapo Kakko. Kakko shoots and scores from the right faceoff circle. Just like that, it's 2-0 in favor of the Rangers. And what's crazy about the kid line to me right now is, this game ends, and Kakko ends up with a goal. Lafreniere has an assist. Philip Hedl has an assist. And you're almost a little bit underwhelmed by that because this line has really been on fire recently, and you see that the Rangers score 6 goals. You would almost expect them to have more points than that. But regardless, the kid line's been awesome for the Rangers lately, and it's a situation where opponents are having a heck of a time keeping these guys off the score sheet. It has not happened often recently. So once again, very, very nice to see all three of the kids contributing. I know there's been a little bit of a movement to, well, maybe we should stop calling them the kid line. They're getting a little bit older. I mean, I think it still has some legs. I think for the rest of this season, at least. I mean, who's the oldest one? Philip Hedel, and he's 23. You can still go with the kid line for at least a little bit longer there. But yeah, this makes it 2-0 in favor of the Rangers. And then they build their lead to 3-0. Tyler Motte gets to a puck along the boards, basically just throws it at the net and scores under the right arm of Vasilevsky. This is all set up with Barclay Goodrow gaining the blue line for the Rangers. He got the puck to Motte. Vasilevsky made a save there, but then Goodrow is along the boards. He kicks it up the boards out of the corner, and then Motte shoots from right along the boards there, and it just goes under Andrei Vasilevsky's right arm, like I said, 3-0, and that was the Rangers' third goal in the span of just 5 shots there. So good stuff there, just peppering Vasilevsky. And, Vasilevsky did not have his A game at the beginning of this one. I think that's for sure. He made a couple of nice saves later, but the Rangers took advantage. They started fast, and when in doubt, get the puck at the net and see what happens. And there were a couple times where it seemed like they caught Andrei Vasilevsky by surprise a little bit, and this was certainly one of them. Tyler Motte shooting from the boards there. Motte also, while we're talking about him, he was Johnny on the spot later in this game too, because the Lightning, they were down 3-0. They had closed it to 3-2. They got a goal, a power play goal, actually, midway through the first, and then also a goal by Ranger legend Darren Raddysh. Darren Raddysh never actually played a game with the Rangers, but he was with the Wolfpack for a couple of seasons, and he scores on a shot from the blue line, makes the score 3-2, his first NHL goal. Listen, I'm used to former Rangers burning the team, but when it comes down to, when we're getting to the point where it's Darren Raddysh doing it, that's when it's getting a little bit ridiculous. But regardless, Tyler Motte, once again, Johnny on the spot. He answers just 15 seconds later for the Rangers. The puck is in the Rangers zone. Gaudreau gets it to Lafreniere along the boards. Lafreniere with a pass across the ice and out of the zone into the neutral zone. Puck bounces off the boards, and Tyler Motte essentially just outworks his guy for the puck. Basically just chipped it ahead to himself. The puck was kind of in the skates of the Tampa defenseman there. Motte chips it ahead, picks it up in stride, goes in, couple stick handle moves, shoots and scores. And he was smart to pull the trigger when he did, because there was another Tampa defender that was kind of closing in on him, and Motte wasn't going to be able to get much closer to the net than where he was when he shot. He had to shoot maybe a little bit earlier than he would have liked, but it was going to be his only chance. He had to pull the trigger when he did, and great judgment by Motte doing that, and finishing here, scoring from in pretty deep there and giving the Rangers a 4-2 lead. And something that I tweeted during this game last night, Tyler Motte is going to have a big goal in the playoffs. This is something that I mentioned last season when the Rangers went into the playoffs, and he got it. I would say this is a pretty big goal. The Rangers are down 3-2 against the Carolina Hurricanes, Game 6 in Madison Square Garden, and Tyler Motte basically just carried the puck right up the center of the ice, shot and scored, and that gave the Rangers a 1-0 lead in that game, and that put the Rangers on top for the rest of the series. They didn't trail at all in Game 6. They didn't trail at all in Game 7. So a huge tone-setting goal by Tyler Motte there last year in the playoffs when the Rangers were facing elimination. And I could see him doing something like that this year too. He's not somebody that's going to light up the score sheet, but it just feels like he makes them count. And this was a big goal in this game as well, because Rangers are up 3-0. Tampa closes it to 3-2. They're starting to find their game a little bit and spending some time in the Ranger zone and whatnot, but Motte answers the Tampa goal just 15 seconds later, scores a goal of his own, puts the Rangers up by a score of 4-2, and, they were on their way to a win. It wasn't easy because, Tampa once again closed it down to 4-3. Rangers pulled away late, but that nevertheless was a huge goal by Tyler Motte there, and he had a couple chances actually to complete the hat trick. A couple of, I would say, at least medium dangerous scoring opportunities in the third period. There was one instance where, he came up the right side pretty fast, got a good shot away, turned aside by Vasilevsky, but that would have been something else to see Tyler Motte come away with a hat trick there. But I want to keep talking about, pretty much everything having to do with the Rangers right now. We're going to keep breaking down some things from this game. I want to talk about Ryan Lindgren, his return to the lineup, Patrick Kane sitting out for a game, the injury to Jacob Trouba as well. Also going to talk about Kucherov destroying a camera in the penalty box. So we'll get to all that good stuff in just a second here. But first, we got to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet does not win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So, a couple of things going on with the Ranger lineup coming into this game. You get Ryan Lindgren coming back into the lineup. You've got Patrick Kane sitting out. He had a maintenance day at practice. Apparently, he was in some discomfort. Gerard Gallant did mention, though, that if this was, this time next week, obviously kind of, hinting at the playoffs there, I think, that Patrick Kane would be in the lineup. So, just taking a cautious approach, and better safe than sorry at this time of the season. I mean, I know the Rangers, they technically can still catch the Devils or the Hurricanes, and it would be nice to have home ice advantage in the first round, but what's more important is making sure that everybody is locked in and ready to go for the playoffs, and everybody's as healthy as they can possibly be, coming down the stretch here and going into the postseason. So Patrick Kane sits out, which is completely fine. They moved Jimmy Vesey to the top line, which I'm completely fine with. I'd rather honestly do that than juggle the entire lineup. And obviously with 11 forwards in the lineup, some guys are going to be double shifting, and you're going to have, some funky line combinations throughout the night. But as far as just, moving one guy up to the top line, I'd rather do that than having guys, just move all over the lineup. And Jimmy Vesey's fine there. I mean, he's not the most exciting or dynamic option as far as guys to play in the top six, but when he was playing top 6 minutes earlier this season, I never really felt like he was slowing everybody down. Again, there's more exciting options, but I didn't think that he was really a detriment to whatever line he was playing on in the top six, and he did fine in this game as well. But that obviously also meant there were some adjustments made as far as the defensemen are concerned. You had Ryan Lindgren back in the lineup, so he replaces Nico Mikkola on the top pairing with Adam Fox, which should be to the surprise of no one. Nothing against Mikkola, but if Lindgren's out there, he's going to be with Adam Fox. Mikkola drops from the first pairing back down to the third pairing with Braden Schneider, and then you get Ben Harpur as the extra, because with Patrick Kane out of the lineup, Rangers pretty much forced to go with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen, and that kind of leads me into the next thing that I want to talk about here, and that's the injury to Jacob Trouba. The only silver lining to Trouba getting hurt is that the Rangers had 7 defensemen dressed for this game, so they could just roll with 6 defensemen even after the injury to Trouba. But yeah, Trouba taken down in the first period, hit from behind by Corey Perry, and was ruled out, going into the second period, or at least that's when we found out about it. That's when the announcers relayed the information that Trouba would not be returning to the game. Obviously, fingers crossed that he gets back sooner rather than later. As far as the hit itself, I mean, Perry kind of got Trouba from behind a little bit, but I can't really go too crazy on this. I don't think it was like a malicious hit. It's not like he hit him from behind and, shoved him face first into the boards there or anything like that. Trouba fell very awkwardly, and that might have actually been what caused the injury. But regardless, obviously Trouba out for the rest of this game, and hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. Something else that's kind of random that I want to talk about here is something that happened late in this game, and we're going to get to the fights in just a second. Don't anybody worry about that. We're going to get to fight night at Madison Square Garden. But something that I took notice of, Kucherov is called for a penalty, getting pretty late in this game, and he goes to the penalty box, and what does he do? He's sitting there, he's got his stick in his hand, and smashes the camera. They got those cameras there in the penalty box that, they kind of shoot the players from like underneath them. I think the cameras are sort of like on the ground there, and they kind of like look up at the players, and he breaks a camera with his stick. And I tweeted this out last night, and I'm not even joking here. I'm being dead serious. Kucherov should have to pay for that camera. He should have to replace it out of his own pocket, because that's destroying property any way you look at it. I realize this is, a professional sport here and everything. That camera doesn't belong to him. That's, the property of Madison Square Garden, I would imagine. And, somebody's going to have to pay for that. It should be Kucherov, and he's the one that can afford it more than anybody else. And you try that. You try going to work, today or tomorrow or whenever, and, reenact the scene from Office Space. If anybody who's seen Office Space, just take the printer and throw it on the ground and smash it and kick it, break it into a million pieces, and see how that goes for you. See if you still have your job within 5 minutes of that happening. And, same thing, go out to a restaurant, try smashing one of the security cameras. Just take a stick and just whack the security camera, break it into a bunch of pieces, and see how that goes for you, too. I don't think it's going to end very well, and it shouldn't end. I'm not saying Kucherov should be, arrested or anything. Let's not go nuts here, but he should have to, pay for that out of his own pocket because he's destroying property. And it's just childish and immature. Sometimes a player will take a penalty, and they'll see the camera there, and they'll take a towel, and they'll throw it over the camera. That's a little childish too, but at least doing that, you're not breaking the camera, you're not destroying it. Somebody has to replace that camera today. Somebody right now probably is trying to either fix that camera or get a new one replaced in time for the next home game for the New York Rangers. There's just no reason for it. And again, I don't know whose camera it was, if it's Madison Square Gardens, if it's TNT's camera, or exactly how that works. But it belongs to someone. It doesn't belong to Kucherov, and he destroyed it, and he should have to, pay for it and replace it and, provide the cash for a new camera there. Anyway, I just wanted to get that off my chest because it was one of those things, and he's not the only one that's ever done it. We've seen other players do it. There might even be Rangers that have done it in the past, but that one just kind of stood out to me last night. Just kind of childish, breaking a camera there and destroying property. Let's call it what it is. It's literally destroying property. So there should be some kind of repercussions for that. I want to keep everything rolling. I want to talk about, once again, Fight Night at Madison Square Garden in just a second here, and we will certainly get to that. But first, I just got to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in a search, according to U.S. Indeed data. Indeed does the hard hiring work for you. Sponsor a job, and we'll match you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description right when you post. With Indeed, you can start hiring fast. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon, Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application, pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, let's keep everything rolling here and get to Fight Night at Madison Square Garden. This game got crazy, and it's interesting because we've kind of had the debate coming down the home stretch here where it's obvious the Rangers are going to the playoffs, and then of course they officially clinch playoffs, and they're kind of in a situation now, especially after that regulation loss to the Devils, where it certainly seems like they're going to finish in third place. The division and second place are technically both still in play right now, but it looks like the Rangers are going to be in third. The Lightning, they're kind of locked into their spot too. They're going to be playing Toronto in the first round. It's possible that Tampa could pass Toronto and take home ice advantage in that series, but for the most part, these teams are pretty well locked into their playoff spot. So it's kind of like, okay, well, what kind of game is this going to be? Is it going to be, kind of competed at 3/4 speed or half speed, or are they going to go all out? Because this is a rivalry now, and both teams are, there's no love lost there. And they're both gearing up for the playoffs, so this could get really intense also. It was kind of hard to know exactly what kind of game this was going to be between the Rangers and Lightning. But, we got the latter because this game was completely out of control. You would have thought that this was like a play-in game at the end of the season. It's game number 82. The winner of this game is going to the playoffs, and the loser's going home. Thankfully, we as Ranger fans are not going to be in that situation. We know they're going to the playoffs. But regardless, that's kind of what it felt like with the intensity and just the physicality that we saw in this game. So, the fights. Begins in the first period. You got Ben Harpur against Maroon. Tough matchup for Harpur. Maroon's a tough guy, but Maroon was in front trying to screen Igor, and then Maroon and Harpur came together while they were both leaving the ice, and Maroon throws his gloves down. I don't think Harpur was really expecting it, but he obliged. He dropped his gloves and fought back, and, 5 for fighting, and Maroon also got the instigator penalty, as he should, because, this was just completely out of nowhere. I don't think Harpur was really expecting it. So that led to a power play for the Rangers. They don't believe they cashed in on that one. I might be getting my power plays mixed up in the first period, but I think that was one that the Lightning were able to kill off. But Harpur did a good job here. Maroon's a tough guy and a fighter, and Harpur hung in there, and, I'd say pretty even fight overall there. Second period, you've got another instance where Tampa's on the power play. So let's get to this first. First of all, the Rangers giving up way too many breakaways when playing with a lead here in the second period. I don't know what was going on here. It felt like the Lightning got about 4 breakaways in the span of about 4 minutes, but Igor came up big on a couple of them. And then there was a situation where, Igor makes the save. Cirelli had a couple of chances on the breakaway. Igor stopped both of them. And then Hagel shoots from the doorstep, and it barely gets over the crease. Igor was kind of juggling it, and it kind of fell onto his pad there, but it was over the line, and it was a goal for the Lightning. Then, literally 5 or 6 seconds later, Killorn comes flying in, whacks Igor, kind of knocks him into the net. Now, I will say, in Killorn's slight defense here, it is possible that he thought that this play was still live and still going, and he didn't hear the whistle, and, he thinks the puck is still loose, and I got to get in there and knock it into the net to get my team a goal. So I can understand it a little bit, but I also understand the Rangers' reaction to this. You're not going to allow anybody to run your team's goalie the way that Killorn did here. So, Lindgren went nuts. Lindgren was really trying to get at Killorn and basically jumped on him. So a lot going on here. You end up getting penalties to Lindgren, to Killorn, and to Cirelli. They all get minor penalties, and the Rangers go on the power play as a result of that. So obviously the temperature steadily rising here. And then later in the second period, you get Trocheck and Perry dropping the gloves. Perry challenged Trocheck. And initially, and they mentioned this on the broadcast, I thought maybe Trocheck went after Perry because, Perry was the guy that hit Trouba and knocked him out of this game a little bit earlier. But no, it was actually Perry that challenged Trocheck. And quality over quantity here, because I think Perry landed a few more punches on Trocheck than the other way around, but Trocheck clearly got the best shot of this entire fight. He landed a right hand pretty good that caught Corey Perry flush. So even though he landed fewer punches, I'm going to give the nod to Vincent Trocheck here, winning this fight against Corey Perry. And then, not too long after this, Braden Schneider against Colton. Schneider with just a huge hit at his own blue line against Paul, shoulder check all the way, and you could see this coming. Colton is really not that close to Schneider, and he makes a beeline for him, and that, Schneider's about to get attacked here, and you just kind of hope that Schneider can see him coming, and, Colton kind of jumped on him, they fell down to the ice, and Schneider was smart because he kind of rolled through it, and they were trying to punch each other. It got broken up pretty quick because they were both down on the ice. But yeah, this is another situation where something clearly has to happen here. There has to be more of a penalty against Tampa than there is against the Rangers, which there was, so that was good. And then at the very end of this game, Rangers are up 6-3. You end up having Harpur and Perry dropping the gloves and fighting each other. Now, again, to be completely fair here, Harpur was, being pretty aggressive with Perry toward the end of this game. Perry was in the crease there. But, Corey Perry has a reputation in this league. And I'm sure Ben Harpur's aware of it. And, yeah, the game's pretty much over at this point. It's 6-3 Rangers, excuse me. And, coming down the home stretch, 15 seconds, 10 seconds, Perry's in the crease there. Perry has every right to compete as hard as he wants until, the game is over. But, again, he does have a reputation. And Ben Harpur's mindset here is probably, I'm not letting this guy near my goalie because I know the kind of stuff that he tries to pull. Corey Perry, one of those guys who always kind of toes the line as far as, what's clean and what's dirty. And, it's possible that, Perry could make some contact with Igor Shesterkin. Harpur is going to stand up for his goalie no matter what, but especially right now with this game being as nasty as it had been, and when you also consider the fact that the playoffs are right around the corner, yeah, Harpur's not going to mess around here. He's not going to let anybody get near his goalie, much less Corey Perry. So he was knocking him around a little bit, and then, the final horn sounds, and they're both trying to get at each other, and Perry, to get away from the ref, I think, and to get at Harpur, he actually went around behind the net, came out the other side, they threw the gloves down, and, started fighting, and I think Harpur won that fight too. So rough night for Corey Perry, but I don't exactly feel bad for him. But one more point I wanted to make about this whole thing, fight night and everything, it's not an overwhelming majority of Ranger fans, but there are Ranger fans who run with this claim that the Rangers are soft, that the Rangers lack physicality, and I just don't think that's true. Now, while it's true that the Rangers, they might have a little bit more skill than they do grit, I don't think they're lacking in the grit department at all. And in fact, I think they have more grit than a lot of teams. There's a lot of big, tough, physical players on this team. There's a lot of guys, clearly, who are not afraid to drop the gloves and fight. We've seen that over the last handful of games with the Caps and now with Tampa Bay here. And a couple of stats that I want to throw out there, just in terms of, illustrating the Rangers' physicality. Let's look at hits per game, where the Rangers stand among the rest of the NHL, and let's also look at fights per game, where the Rangers stand in relation to the rest of the NHL. And I realize these are not the only two ways to determine toughness and physicality, but I think it's a good place to start. Okay, so hits. Rangers in the NHL right now, they are 9th in the league in hits per game. That's top third. The teams ahead of the Rangers right now in that stat, for everybody that thinks that hitting is like the end-all be-all, and it's important. You want to be a physical team, especially come playoff time. But as far as the teams that currently rank ahead of the Rangers in hits per game, in order from first to ninth, the Rangers, you got the Penguins have the most hits per game, followed by the Senators, Predators, Flyers, Islanders, Coyotes, Capitals, Lightning, and then the Rangers. The majority of those teams are not going to the playoffs, and some of them are among the worst teams in the league. So I just wanted to throw that out there for everybody that thinks it's the only thing that matters. And one more stat to kind of back this whole thing up. The Avalanche won the Stanley Cup last season. They have the 6th fewest hits in the NHL this season, and they were 10th fewest last season. So again, it's not the end-all be-all. It's fun to have a physical team. You got to have players that go out there and stand up for themselves and stand up for their teammates. But I believe the Rangers do indeed have that. And like I said, it's been on full display in each of these last 2 games. And as far as fighting is concerned, the Rangers right now are tied with the Montreal Canadiens for 7th in the league. They have gotten into 26 fights this season. So again, this is not a team that, cowers in the corner if they're in a physical game or backs down away from guys. A few years ago, the Tom Wilson year, you could maybe make that argument that the Rangers didn't have enough toughness, enough physicality, enough guys who were willing to fight when the occasion called for it. Although after Tom Wilson pulled all his nonsense, the Rangers, they were ready to go as far as fighting in the next game. But they've added more toughness and more physicality since then. I don't think they're lacking in the toughness department, the grittiness department, the willing to fightness department, whatever you want to call it. I think the Rangers are right there, among the top teams when it comes to physicality and hitting and all that good stuff. So just wanted to throw that out there, and you guys can let me know if you agree or disagree via email or YouTube comment or Twitter DM or whatever you got to do. But I figure we could pretty much call it there. I just want to once again thank you guys again for helping me get to 800 episodes. It's been a blast on here. It's been really cool getting to meet some of you guys and just talk some Ranger hockey. Maybe at some point we'll eventually do like a Locked On New York Rangers meetup. I think that could be a lot of fun. The Fantasy League's always a blast. By the way, I won the Fantasy League 2nd straight season. But yeah, Dan gave me a good fight in the finals. Dan and me were it was a competitive game. And I won 5-4, 5 wins, 4 losses, 1 tie in terms of, the stats, because you get a win or a loss for every stat. I was able to edge out Dan, but since Dan was the runner-up, we'll get him on a future episode of Locked On New York Rangers. But yeah, one more stat I want to throw at you guys, and I actually want to talk about an award that was given out. So Rangers came into this game with a record of 31-0 when they score 4 or more goals, so you can make that 32-0. Always a fun stat there. Also, I just wanted to make mention of the fact that Jacob Trouba won the Rod Gilbert Mr. Ranger Award. It was presented before the game by Rod's wife, Judy. This is the second year that the Rangers have given out this award. Chris Kreider won it the first year. It goes to the Ranger who, quote, best honors Rod's legacy by exemplifying leadership qualities both on and off the ice and making a significant humanitarian contribution to his community. And yeah, that sounds about right. By all accounts, Jacob Trouba, very charitable person away from the ice, and obviously a leader. I mean, it's his first year as captain. You almost have to give it to Jacob Trouba. It's his first year as the Ranger captain. They haven't had a captain in a while. You had that moment where the helmet throw against the boards, and always very, very accountable after games. And it's one of those things where as the season has progressed, for those of us who maybe thought it was a little weird, or maybe Trouba wasn't our first pick as captain coming into the season, I've always kind of been a Kreider guy. But when I found out that all the players wanted Jacob Trouba to be the captain, that's what kind of sold me. It's kind of like, okay. And Rangers having another great season. They don't seem to be lacking in leadership from Trouba or even guys like Mika or Kreider. So I think year one of the Jacob Trouba as Captain Experiment is certainly a success, and I would imagine that certainly he's going to be wearing the C for a lot of seasons to come here. That will do it for today, though, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, at @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that is at @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to the Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time. Thanks for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Game to Game NHL. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts.